Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you today. The EU's biggest nations join the list of countries suspending use of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. But the jab is safe, according to the World Health Organization and British experts.
The message for now is that this vaccine is safe, effective. It's saved thousands and thousands of elderly and vulnerable people's lives.
Hundreds more gather to remember Sarah Everard as the government unveils new measures to protect women.
Exactly a year ago today, the curtain came down on theatres like this one and others up and down the UK, leaving empty chairs and empty stages. We'll find out how it's affected those who work on stage and backstage and how they're preparing to reopen.
Another name in retail takes a hit. Good morning. Thornton's announces store closures and Greggs are expected to show a significant slump. Who will survive the changes to how we eat and drink?
It was the last major sporting event in the UK to be filled with fans, and now, a year on, the Cheltenham Festival will feel very different starting today with no crowd and no famous Cheltenham roar.
And it may be a little bit gloomy and damp as you cast open the curtains this morning, but bear with it. We're going to swap the grey skies for blue ones as we go through the day. I'll have your full forecast here on Breakfast.
Morning, it's a Tuesday the 16th of March. Our main story for you. The World Health Organization has urged countries not to pause COVID vaccinations after several major EU member states suspended their rollouts of the Oxford-AstraZeneca jab.
The WHO says the vaccine is safe and there's no evidence that it causes blood clots. That's the World Health Organization, of course. Its vaccine safety experts will meet later to discuss the issue, as Jim Reid can explain.
11 million people in the UK have already been given their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine without any serious side effects emerging. But a growing number of other countries have now suspended its use after a small number of cases of blood clotting were recorded. France, Germany, Italy and Spain have temporarily stopped using the vaccine as a precautionary measure, days after Norway said 3 healthcare workers had needed hospital treatment. Several other European countries, including Austria, have stopped using certain batches of the drug. Medical regulators in both the UK and the EU have said there is no evidence the clots were the result of being given the vaccine itself. Manufacturer AstraZeneca said the number of cases of blood clotting so far is no higher than doctors would expect to see in the general population in normal times. And the government's scientific advisors say there is no reason to pause the rollout in this country.
The message for now is that this vaccine is safe, effective. It's saved thousands and thousands of elderly and vulnerable people's lives. And we're determined to press on with it unless we see a major safety signal to suggest otherwise, in which case we will be open and transparent with the public.
Later today, the Safety Committee of the EU Drugs Agency will meet to review all the cases that have come to light so far. If it gives the green light, then other countries are likely to resume their vaccination programmes quickly. In the UK, the message from scientists is to take any coronavirus jab if offered, as all the data so far show the risks of catching COVID far outweigh the risks of a side effect from any vaccine. Jim Reid, BBC News.
Downing Street has announced a series of measures aimed at improving safety in England for women and girls in the wake of the death of Sarah Everard.
It's after hundreds of people took part in another vigil for the 33-year-old in London last night. Dan Johnson reports.
This reaction, the strength of feeling, isn't just about Sarah Everard's death, but the wider questions that have been raised about women's safety and the response of the police. Yesterday, officers kept a low profile, mostly hands-off approach at the start of this gathering in Parliament Square. It went ahead despite the Home Secretary urging people to stick to COVID regulations and in defiance of the government's new policing bill, part of which could limit future protests. Last night, the Home Office said it was already increasing the amount spent making our streets safer from £20 to £45 million.
this investment will go on very practical measures like better lighting, more CCTV, to try to give people that confidence that we really, really want to instill after last week's terribly, terribly sad events.
Last night's vigil moved to Westminster Bridge, Downing Street and the headquarters of London's Metropolitan Police. The organisation Reclaim These Streets says it has lost faith in the leadership of the force. Officers did step in, telling people to keep moving, head home or face fines for breaching lockdown rules. At the centre of all this, we cannot forget an innocent young woman who was just walking home. Sarah Everard's death has already shaken this country, making us question how society works and whether it fairly protects everyone. Dan Johnson, BBC News in central London.
Well, let's go and speak to Dan, who is outside New Scotland Yard for us this morning. Dan, good morning to you. A little quieter there this morning, but the debate continues today, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes. The Metropolitan Police has been the focus of those further protests last night. The force is under pressure. The government has announced extra money to try to make the streets safer. That Safer Streets Fund is for councils to bid for. It could be used to provide extra patrols late at night. There's a suggestion that some pilot projects could be extended, which would see plainclothes officers policing in bars and nightclubs when they're able to reopen. Labour has said that that investment doesn't go anywhere near far enough, not even replacing the cuts that have been made to local services over the last few years. And the organisation Reclaim These Streets has welcomed the funding, but said that there are deeper cultural issues that need to be addressed here, that misogyny is, in its view, baked into the police, the courts, the criminal justice system. Well, the government says its policing and security bill will extend sentences, will give the police more powers, will bring more justice for victims, but there are concerns about the impact that that could have on the right to protest in future. And this case has raised some serious questions, some big issues that will take time to be understood and addressed. But at the heart of this, of course, there is a family, loved ones that are still grieving, and Sarah Everard's murder investigation is still going on as well.
Dan Johnson, thank you very much. We'll speak to you a little bit later on this morning.
Free school meals should be extended in England over the summer holiday this year. That's according to the new Children's Commissioner, Dame Rachel de Souza.
Speaking to the BBC, she said children have paid a high price during the pandemic and now is the time to rethink the support that they need. Our education editor, Branwyn Jeffries, has this report.
Playing with friends at school, children have missed so much this year. So, a huge survey of children is planned in England to understand their experiences. The Children's Commissioner argues for children in government. The new woman in the job says families still need support. She told me free school meals should stay through the summer.
I absolutely want to see free school meals extended, and I'm very concerned about suggestions of dropping universal credit. If the universal credit was dropped down again, I'd like to see services provided in that place, but I'd rather it wasn't dropped.
Do you think they were too slow to listen to Marcus Rashford?
Yes.
No, definitely. These sixth formers said the pandemic had affected all their lives.
Seeing people as a kind of recreational activity kind of went down to nothing, and I think the impacts that has on someone's mind, especially in this period of your life when you're a teenager, this is the time when most of your memories are made.
There needs to be change to helping people who have been affected not just by the pandemic but by years-long inequalities.
The last year has made visible pressures on children's lives that were already there. The children who've got a quiet place to study and those that don't. Families under pressure struggling to put food on the table. And the pressures on young people's mental health. The government said there is more support in schools for mental health and catching up, as well as £220 million going to local councils. Cash for holiday activities and food for families who need help this year.
Branwen Jeffries, BBC News.
The sister of the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, has warned the US not to cause a stink, those are the words, as Joe Biden's administration prepares to set out its Korean policy. Kim Yo-jong criticised the US and South Korea for conducting joint military exercises. Her comments come a day before the US Secretaries of State and Defence are due to arrive in South Korea.
Nicola Sturgeon is to reveal her latest plan to ease lockdown restrictions in Scotland later. It's thought the First Minister will give more detail on when shops and hospitality will be able to open. She's previously said her government will be led by data, not dates. In Northern Ireland, ministers will also meet to review lockdown restrictions. They're expected to provide further clarity on when all school children will return to classes.
I got some remarkable footage of a pod of orcas to show you swimming off the coast of Shetland. These were filmed by the photographer Gary Buchan, who was able to follow them for 45 minutes as they played with each other. Would you like some whale facts, Louise?
Go on.
Well, male orcas can grow a jaw-dropping 8 metres in length and can weigh up to 6 tonnes. Despite that weight, they can travel at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour.
What lovely pictures, aren't they?
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.